Today I will focus on agents as daily active users of protocols and chains. And I mean, the title gives it away, but I'll really drill home the point of how you can bring autonomous agents to whatever you're doing and complement the experience for end users by doing so. I'm co-founder of Valerie, so we're co-contributor to Olas or Autonolas. And then let's get into it. Okay, so I heard you had a lot of presentations on agents already. Nevertheless, I'll quickly define it, just for those who maybe just arrived and in general to be on the same page. So an autonomous agent is basically a software entity which effectively does three things. It perceives information from the world around it, like we humans do. It then processes that in some way, using that information as well as data it might already have, and then it will act on the environment. Now, autonomous agents is not a new thing. They've been around since the middle of the last century, and so there's many different types of implementations, many different types of paradigms in which they have been developed and deployed. One thing which is particularly exciting about autonomous agents is that one can effectively create products that are the emergence of where the product is emerging out of the interaction of the different agents, right? So an example we'll talk about in a moment is prediction markets. Now, before I get into the specifics, I always like to talk about this slide lately because I really think we're at a pivotal point when it comes to autonomous agent experiences. So firstly, we have obviously the web, and all of us in this room had to do this test of basically knowing that there's read, write, and own. But read, write, own doesn't just apply to data, it also applies to algorithms. So in particular, reading, write is about the Web 1, where we can view content. Writing is about Web 2, where we can interact with content as well. Social media applications are a good example. And then ownership is what a lot of us are here for in Web 3. It can be data, it can be algorithms, it can be other things. Now, in AI, we can also, with broad strokes, define three evolutions, so to speak. And by the way, all these are always there in parallel, right? So it's not like one ends and then the other one starts. It's just that new paradigms emerge, opening avenues for new innovation. So in AI, we have initially had this rules-based approach where people would basically come up with very, very complex rules to define the entire systems. And there's actually chatbots, you can go back, the first chatbots were of this nature. But then at some point people realized, okay, we can take a blob of data and actually infer the rules rather than define the rules and have them act on the data. And that's the learning paradigm. And now we're in the process of moving into this agentic one, where effectively all the, I think, big research sort of points towards more and more agentic forms of algorithms. So be that on the large language model side, where people are trying to get more features of planning directly into the model, or be it in the context of reinforcement learning and others. And then we have UX. UX is probably not such a common distinction between those three phases, but our team is very convinced that that is a meaningful way to look at things. You have viewing, that relates very much to reading a book, reading a website, interacting, again, like a bit of parallel to the right, where you're basically using a social media application, where you might be using ChatGPT, a personal assistant agent, a smart agent. All sorts of products have this interaction focus, where you're there to work with the product and it gets something done on your behalf just there and then. But there's another entire sort of products, which we actually all know. Some of them are very physical, like a washing machine, where you put things in, you turn it on, you go away, and then it gets the stuff done. You're not there interacting with it all the time. And autonomous agents often also have this feature. You might instruct them at some point, but actually there's also some architectures and ways of building them where you even don't necessarily have to instruct them. They're just inferred from sort of the things they know about it, you. And so we have this very exciting convergence here, in our opinion, where own, agentic, and outcomes come together. And if we actually look at that convergence, then the intersection of AI and crypto, and the kind of whole point of this event, in a way, really makes that possible, because you can't have the combination of all three without those two coming together. So I have 10 minutes, so I'll be very fast on that, but I don't know, I'm sure others motivated the intersection of crypto and AI. Some find it contrived, but it really isn't. If you look at some of the problems you have with building AI systems, autonomous systems, other kind of applications in Web 2, they're very quickly to list. You have to KYC for everything and everyone. You have to accept the fact that you can't take ownership for most things. You can rent them at best. You almost always have platform risk. In the best case, you have some like good end user service agreement, but the company could still go bust. In the worst case, they'll just shut it down tomorrow. And then there's the whole thing of limited composability. If you build there, you obviously always need someone to open up an API, and tomorrow maybe they'll close it, everything breaks down, right? Now, these are things Web3 is there to solve. We have like crypto native rails for payments, interacting, contracting, and so on. We have the ability to co-own algorithms and data at various levels of the stack, right? Be that directly on the chain or off-chain by systems like I'll be talking about. And then the other two, I think in particular, composability is served very well by open architectures, which the Web3 paradigm favors. So let's look quickly into what Olas specifically offers. We offer two things on a technical level: the stack and the protocol. So the protocol lives on-chain. The stack is a software stack, think of it OP stack, but for autonomous agents, that allows you to compose these autonomous software entities. Now the key thing about the stack is that it sort of innovates in two dimensions. On the one hand, it allows a developer to compose autonomous agents from Lego bricks, so to speak. So an autonomous agent is ultimately an application, so you're not just concerned about plugging in various plugin libraries to get stuff done. You're ultimately actually concerned about composing application logic. And that's what this stack is particularly good at. It kind of breaks this up in so-called finite state machines, which you then can compose as application building blocks. The other dimension on which it's innovating is that it basically allows you to build an agent as a single node system, which you run on your local host or in the cloud. And it then allows you to take that application and distribute it and ultimately decentralize it. What I mean by this is different people, different entities can run one node each, and the agent is the whole of those nodes. So you end up having a sovereign system that can be co-owned, right? All of us in the room could run one node each, which makes up the autonomous agent. Now, let's go to use cases, because so far it's been all rather abstract. The biggest use case we have live is one with prediction agents. There's 3 types, and then there's many copies of each run by very different entities in the Olas ecosystem. Effectively, it is one of the beautiful products, in my opinion, of autonomous agents, because it highlights this benefit of multi-agent systems. You have different types of autonomous agents specializing on very different type of activities. So we have these agents which provide liquidity in markets, continuously creating new markets around current events. You then have, we call them the market creator. You then have other agents which are continuously trading in markets. So those are the ones which are actually taking the positions on either side of, let's say, a binary event. And then you have other types of agents still who are actually specializing on making predictions. And we found that by separating these things, not only is it easier for the developers to build into one of those paradigms, which are different, like optimizing your trading strategy versus optimizing researching, it also basically makes it easier for operators, because an operator, i.e. a person who runs one of those agents, can more easily focus on running an agent which just trades, which means I have to provide capital, versus an agent which does research, which means I might either have to have a bunch of API keys, maybe to some centralized model, or I have to run some of those local open source models, which is a very different kind of requirement from an operator perspective. The nice thing is that what these agents produce is not doable by a single one of them, right? The end product are those prediction markets with their economic backing. And so the product here is the emergence of those agent interactions. Olas in particular focuses on basically creating more of these systems. So yesterday we had a big announcement which isn't incorporated in the slides, but it's basically a whole upgrade to the protocol which allows us to basically bootstrap more and more of these so-called agent economies and allows anyone in the room actually to do so. But more generally, Olas has this whole kind of design to encourage a flywheel whereby developers, those building the agents, operators, those running the agents, and so-called like service or systems owners who basically coordinate different agents, that could be a DAO, that could be a single person, can come together and sort of bootstrap these agent-based use cases. And we've been rather successful so far. So on Gnosis chain alone, we had hit this milestone last week where over 10% of lifetime safe transactions were done by these kind of systems. And actually currently we're hitting around 70% of safe transactions a day. So really the call to action I would leave you with is go inwards and think about, okay, I'm maybe on base with a gaming use case. And maybe there is some component of that gaming use case which could be enriched by bringing autonomous agents to it. Then come talk to us. Or you could be thinking deeply about governance. There's a product which we've built in the past called Governator, which is sort of an early step towards autonomous governance where you can delegate tokens to the system of autonomous agents and they collectively implement governance decisions. Now, that might be something you want to maybe deploy in Optimism because you're in the Optimism ecosystem. We basically think that at Olas that autonomous agents should complement and enrich the user experience of everyone on every chain. And like we are happy to bring it to any chain which you care about, to any protocol you care about. Just come talk to us and we'll help you.